has a book that's out today. The book goes on sale today. It's Inside Pitch, Playing and Broadcasting the Game I Love with Nick Cafardo, who's one of my favorite writers from the Boston Globe, and a forward by Greg Maddux, the Hall of Famer. And Tom is nice enough to join us now. Tom, it's Michael and Don. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. So what made you want to write the book?
Well, it's one of those things that people had kind of been asking me about it, and, hey, you should do a book. And, I'd done one before with Nick, and it went well, and it was a good experience. So it was kind of one of those things I thought, well, why not kind of do the sequel to the first half of my career? And Nick was gracious enough to do it, so it went well, and hopefully it's something that people are going to enjoy reading.
So many people, and we're talking about LeBron before we had you get on, they judge everything by championships. And the Braves had an unbelievable run, and you won one championship, and you pitched the clinching game, Game 6, 1-0. Do you think you guys failed not winning more than one championship?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you obviously want to win more, but, I think, like I've always said to people, hey, I would rather do what we did, win 14 division titles, go to the World Series 5 times, only win one during that span. I'd rather do that than do what the Marlins did or what Toronto did when they won back-to-back and then they were gone for 15 or 20 years, whatever the case may be. I mean, I know looking at it in reverse as a fan, I like my teams being in it every year. Whether they win it or they don't, I like the fact that they're in it and they have a chance. That to me is much more fun than being a fan of a team that wins a championship and then they go away for a while and then, hey, they win another one. That to me is not fun. Now, as a player, like I said, yeah, we wish we could have won more, and we probably should have won at least one more, but it didn't work out that way.
Tom, I'm anxious to read the book, and I skimmed through it, and I see there's an entire chapter on New York. Do you regret coming to the Mets?
Not at all. I'd do it again if I had the chance to. I made no secrets about it at the time. I wanted to stay in Atlanta. That was my intention. And I've been there. It was my home. My family was there. It was comfortable for me. It was the easy thing to do. But it didn't work out. And looking back at it now, I wouldn't trade those 5 years in New York. I had a great time up there. Yes, it's a difficult place to play, and I had my difficult moments. But, I certainly had a lot of great moments up there as well. I had a great time, met a lot of great people, both players and people in the organization and people around New York for that matter. I mean, I've said it since I played there. I think everybody should play a year in New York and see what that experience is like. And like I said, it was a lot of fun for me, but no question. I've said it at the time. It was a difficult move for me, but looking back, it's something that I wouldn't change. I enjoyed it.
When we knew we were going to have you on, I said I've got to ask Tom about this because we had a big discussion yesterday about Matt Harvey, who got booed off the mound his last start at Citi Field, and yesterday he pitched well, or the day before he pitched really well, and they cheered him, chanted Harvey, and he didn't tip his cap, which I had no problem with because if you're going to boo me, why do I have to salute you when you cheer? Did he do the right thing or the wrong thing, Tom?
I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's different. I think it probably would have been a smarter move to tip your cap. I mean, look, again, that's one of the tough things about playing in New York and what I've said to people. There's no place tougher to play when it's not going well, and there's no place better when it's going well. You have to be accountable for what you're doing, but at the same time, you have to understand that, fans are fans, and if you're not doing well, they're going to let you know. Now, most of the time as a player, I didn't need the fans to tell me I wasn't doing well. I knew it,
right, and
I wanted to change it, but that's part of the nature of the game. But at the same time, when they show appreciation for what you do, you know what? Tip the cap. It's the easy thing to do, and I think certainly in Matt's case, with the way things have been up and down for him this year, and certainly the incident in Washington where he skipped out on the media, I think it publicity-wise, PR-wise, it probably would have been the easier and smarter thing to do.
Now, what I had said yesterday was, you can't take it personal. But is that an easy thing to do, that when you get booed or you get criticized by the media, to not take it personally?
It's hard not to take it personally because, in your heart, you're trying and you don't want to go out there and screw up. But it's the nature of the game. And I think that's one thing that I always felt in New York was if you made yourself accountable, if you stood there at your locker and you talked about it, good or bad, make yourself accountable, then for the most part, the media didn't make it personal. They made it about your performance, good or bad. And that, to me, that's fair. Nobody likes reading things about how they're not performing well. But I think most of us will understand and accept the fact that we're not doing well. But when it becomes personal, or there's a personal tone to some of the, the negative stuff that's being said, then that's a little bit different. Now, again, I think if you make yourself, at least that was my experience up there, that when things were going bad, if I was accountable for what I was doing, it was about what I was doing on the field. There wasn't any hint of anything personal that, hey, somebody doesn't like you because of what you're doing on the field.
We're talking with Tom Glavine. He has a new book out, Inside Pitch, Playing and Broadcasting the Game I Love. Do you think you got too much heat, Tom, for pitching poorly in that last game where the Mets could have made the playoffs, where they seemed like they blamed everything on you?
I think I did, only from the standpoint because most of I think it was centered around my response after the game of saying I was not devastated. I accept the way the game went, and like I've said many times, it was an embarrassing moment for me and one that I wish I could have over, but you can't. There aren't any do-overs, but I think in large part, yeah, we did a lot of things wrong that September that led to that last game of the season, so it was not all about that last game, but I get that's what it boiled down to, and I didn't perform in that game, and I understand all that, but I think a lot of the animosity or the heat that I took, like I said, centered around my comment that people didn't appreciate or didn't understand, I guess, for what I was trying to say.
All right, that rotation in Atlanta considered the best of all time. Does this Mets rotation have a chance to be equal or possibly eclipse it?
You know what? I hope so. I've talked to so many people in the last couple of years about those guys and the comparisons, and I hesitate to hang that on those guys because this is a tough league to pitch in and perform in and do it year in and year out. And when you start getting compared to some of the greats in the game, it's always a difficult thing. You have enough to have to try and live up to. So I hesitate to do that to those guys. But having said that, look, they're fun to watch. They're a great group. They remind me a lot of what we had in the day, in the sense that they're sending a guy out on the mound every night that gives them a really good chance to win. They're sending a guy to the mound every night that gives them a better chance than whoever they're facing on most nights. And, over the course of 162 games, when you can go 4 and 5 deep like they were able to do and like we were able to do, that's a huge advantage that you have. And, to me, those are where the similarities are. Now, I hope they all have the kind of careers we did. It would be great to see another rotation like that with guys together end up in the Hall of Fame. That would be unbelievable and fun to watch. But, I hesitate, like I say, to hang that on them. But, in terms of the depth and the quality and what they bring night in and night out, sure, there are similarities and you can draw comparisons. But, the rest of it obviously is a work in progress. But I hope it goes that way for them.
Tom, are you cool with the way the game has evolved where Noah Syndergaard throws behind Chase Utley and gets thrown out even before anybody was warned and just gets thrown out? Don't you think the game is better if the players are allowed to police it rather than the police policing it?
100%, and I think that is that's part of the problem sometimes with what does go on in the game. And I think that when players police things, things were done quicker. They were done. There was more of an understanding about what was going on. I think that's in large part why you see some things go on in today's game when guys get all upset when there's a pitch even thrown inside on them, let alone a pitch that somebody's trying to knock them down or send a message or anything like that. So. No, I think it's the kind of thing, if you weren't expecting a little bit of something with Chase Utley, then I don't know what you're watching. I don't know what you're paying attention to. Much like the whole Bautista thing in Texas. Now, the only issue I had with that situation was it wasn't taken care of in the first game. When you wait until later in the series, then it becomes a problem. But, I just think that's an element of the game that has gone away. And I'm not a real big fan of it. I like letting the players police what's going on because they generally handle it right and they handle it quickly.
All right, Tom, who's winning the Cup?
Oh, man. Pittsburgh's looking awful good. Crosby's playing well, and, they got Malvin and those guys back healthy again. So I think they're going to be tough to beat, especially with home ice advantage.
You ever play the what-if game? You're in the Hall of Fame for baseball, but you ever play the what-if? What would happen if you played hockey?
I did a lot when I was younger. Not so much now, obviously, but I think, there weren't too many times, I don't know, the first 10 years or so that I played baseball that I didn't go home in the winter and see a Bruins game and kind of envision, all right, what would have happened had I chosen that sport? I'm smart enough to realize that probably wouldn't have gone the way that baseball went. But I'm still curious sometimes as to what would have happened.
All right, final thing. If you were pitching, would you have had a problem with Bautista's bat flip?
In the moment, probably not. But I think that was one of the first things I said to one of my boys when I was watching the game with him last year. I said, okay for now, but I'm interested to see the first time they play Texas next year what's going to happen. So, I get the whole guys want to show some emotion and do some of that stuff, but I do think that there's a line that you can cross, and I think under normal circumstances he crossed the line, but given the series and the magnitude of that home run, it was probably a little bit more forgivable.
All right, it should be a great book. I can't wait to read it. Inside Pitch, Playing and Broadcasting the Game I Love by Nick Cafardo and Tom Glavine. The forward is by the great Greg Maddox. Always love to have you on, Tom. Thank you, and good luck with the book.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.